Now we've selected a site to reinstall the instrument. It's here we are on an internode, so you have a nice, and grapevine, at least this particular cultivar of grape, which is Riesling, has this nice flat spot on it, but you have to remove the excess bark and living tissue to create an installation site. Now I'll start by telling you what not to do. You see we've exposed here, the bark is cut away, and then there's some green tissue underneath. The green tissue is typically phloem and cambium, and basically living tissue, and is not where you attach the psychrometer. You have to go deeper, and here's where this blade becomes possibly a little too crude. So we've taken away the bulk of the bark and living tissue. Now you see that little white section appearing. That is the sapwood, the xylem, and that is what you want to attach the psychrometer to. So now I'm resorting to a blade. Also, you don't want to dig a hole. You don't want to dig a concave depression. You want to keep it as flat as possible. Expose a reasonable section of the xylem, the sapwood section. You see that white starting to show there now. It's approximately 1.5 centimeters or so in length, and about 5 or 6 centimeters perhaps, and that's just about big enough to encompass the end window of the stem psychrometer. Give yourself a little bit of latitude to move it around. And I know this may seem excessive in terms of wounding the tissue, but for most species, and indeed grape, this extent of wounding is really no worse than a pruning scar. Now, so we'll just make sure that it's good and flat. We've exposed an excessive area of xylem sapwood, but that's okay. We'll seal it up later. And then the next thing is to, with deionized water, wash off the installation site, because we have cut some living cells and spilt their blood on the installation site, which will cause an osmotic potential error. So it's not, you can't rinse it off too much. And then, of course, make sure that it's completely dry again by some vigorous rubbing with the tissue to make sure that any free drops of water have been removed. There. Now we're ready to reinstall the instrument. And get it on there. Make sure it's flat so that you can't see daylight. And I can see a little daylight there. So that means I've got a bit of too much of a convex installation, so I'll have to scrape away at it again just to get the high side down a bit. This is not uncommon, but of course it requires that you have to re-rinse and re-dry. And just check that. And that's better. I now have good flat contact there. So I'll re-rinse that. Dry it off. Again, a vigorous wipe to make sure there are no droplets of free water anywhere near the installation. Reposition the instrument. Tighten up the clamp. Now you have an opportunity at this point to move the instrument around, making sure that it's making good contact and sealed. Again, looking for some daylight between the instrument and the stem. A very tiny sliver is not disastrous. And also make sure that the open window, the thermocouple well, is attached on sapwood, not on phloem or cambium or strips of living tissue, because that will contaminate the installation. Now we seal it with some silicone grease here. I'll put a bit of an excess at the top and bottom because I'll want to smear that over the wound tissue that the extra size of the wound that I've created, and then up the side gives me the vapor seal that I need for the instrument. So do that on both sides. Use a small spatula type screwdriver here. Once again, cover up the extra wounded area. Because that is a site of local evaporation that will confound the instrument's reading, because it's looking at the water status of the local tissue. And if it's got some local sites of dehydration, then obviously that will be an artifact. Yeah, that's well sealed, and greased, and ready for some insulation. So now I'll reattach this customized foam padding. Again, you don't want to be too elaborate with the insulation because it can joggle the instrument a bit. And finally, some foil to give us the radiation shielding we need. This piece is a little bigger. That just needs to be physically attached in a reasonably stable way so that it doesn't blow off. And there. Now we've just literally destroyed the local tissue water relations of that installation site, so we should just go away and leave it for a number of hours before starting to make measurements. You can start logging measurements immediately and evaluate the equilibration time that this installation will take. That's useful information for future reference. It usually takes a number of hours for the tissue to sort of recover from the minor surgery that we've just done on it, and then it will start logging reliably for quite some time. And that's it.